Hello, I'm your average ordinary guy. I'm not making money on this video. I'm not associated with anybody. I'm just an American who loves the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and Bill of Rights. I love the flag back there. I love the Star-Spangled Banner, Pledge of Allegiance. I love Mount Rushmore. And I mostly love what America stands for. Freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom to express yourselves, freedom to start your own business, freedom to be successful. That's what America really is about. Not every American is perfect, but there's a bunch of socialists out there. They hate the flag. They hate the Pledge of Allegiance. They're disrespectful when the Star-Spangled Banner plays. They kneel. They spit on military folk. They tell people who love America that they're ignorant, rednecks, racist, that they're not intellectual, that they're not smart. Well, I'm going to be reading the Declaration of Independence. And this founding document gives real Americans the right to say no to these anti-American socialists out there. I want to quickly make a distinction between a classic liberal and a socialist. I'll go into more detail with that later. But I am going to read the Declaration of Independence. Please forgive me, I'm not a professional speaker. I'm just an American who understands the principles that are saying here. I might mess up some words. I'm not going to pronounce everything all right. But you'll understand what I'm trying to say. More importantly, I hope you understand what the Declaration of Independence is saying through my filter, which hopefully you hear what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to stop sometimes and apply it today. Apply how the Declaration of Independence is important today. No matter what some socialist professor says, this document applies today. And maybe even more now than in 1776. So I'm going to start reading. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinion of mankind requires that they should declare the course which impelled them to that separation. Yes, I believe in God. It gives me a foundation. It gives every single person a foundation. You know why socialists believe that they can lie, cheat, and steal? Because they're atheists. I know that there's a few atheists out there who have some moral compass. But most atheists, most socialists, don't have a moral compass. They think it's their right to lie, cheat, and steal. I'll move on. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. God gave us these rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I want to address something here. I don't think we need to start a new government. I just think we need to reestablish the one that was laid down for us. Again, the foundation of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution and Bill of Rights. that we look into the Federalist Papers, that we read what they wrote, not what some socialist liberal says they say, and not a liberal socialist who says what they were, not some guy on CNN saying what the founding fathers were. Look them up yourself. Oh, they don't want you to do that. Do you think a socialist professor wants you to actually read something? Do you think they want you to read these documents? No, because when you read them, you realize that they are tyranny. They represent tyranny. Again, I'm just a normal guy, an everyday guy, and I'm fired up by everything that's going on. But I love America. And there's a lot of Americans out there who love America, but there's a lot of you socialists out there who don't love America. Again, there's a difference between a socialist and a classic liberal, and I'll get to that. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. COVID come to mind? And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Basically, he's saying when good people sit around, do nothing, bad things are going to happen. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, and vice is designed to reduce them under absolute disposition, I might mess up that word again, I'm not a professional speaker. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Has this been happening? I contend it has. And to provide new guards for the future security. Where are they usurping Americans' authority? A liberal judge making law instead of interpreting law. Socialists running the teachers' union and schools, brainwashing our children that America's horrible and socialism is great. Coming up with a crisis after another, so people are afraid. There's nothing more anti-American. By the way, there's nothing more anti-American than thinking that the government should solve your little issues and your little problems. A true American fights through. Such as, I'm going back to Declaration of Independence, such has been the patient suffering of these colonies. Now, again, we're going to apply this today. Americans are suffering in the hands of socialists. Well, they'll say they're helping Americans, are they? And such and now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain. Let me stop here. Again, Jefferson wrote this in 1776. He's talking about King George, I believe it was. But let's apply it today. The history of socialists and socialism has shown that it's a horrible government. It's a horrible system. It's actually a cult. I contend socialism is a cult. Who are the gods? The people who run socialism. They want you to believe Nancy Pelosi is a god. They want you to believe Karl Marx is a god. They want you to believe Obama is a god. I'll get to that. I want to say that I'm not racist. And just because I believe in these documents, that does not mean, and I believe in America, that does not mean I'm racist. Just because I disagree with a bunch of socialists. Actually, if you read these documents, it's real ignorant to continue to be a racist. And I want to point out that one of the fighting cries to end slavery was the Declaration of Independence. And what Jefferson wrote. And what they wrote. You show me a perfect person in history. These socialists have taken an issue that at the time was a very big struggle with them, slavery. There was a lot of them who wanted to get rid of it right at the beginning. But they didn't. and it costs us dearly. But understand, socialists like that. And I'll get to that later. Okay, I'll go back a little bit. The history of the present King of Great Britain, I'll say socialists, has a history of repeated injuries and earth eruptions, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. There's nothing more tyrannical than a socialist. Talk to someone who lived in Cuba. Talk to someone who lived in Venezuela. Talk to someone who lived in Vietnam after the Viet Cong showed up. Talk to a bunch of North Koreans. The truth is, fascism, communism, socialism are all the same tree. They're all the same root. They might apply their government different, but they're tyrants. It's just that socialists go out there and they say they're for the little guy. Are they really? They're creating in this country, socialists are creating two countries. One for them and one for everybody else. Liberals, the socialists only want freedom of speech for them. Everybody else they can shut down on Facebook or YouTube or big tech. And I have a question for you, intellectuals out there. What is the difference between using a match and burning a book and using a delete button on Facebook? Tell me the difference. One you like, the one you don't like? That question is for socialists. I'm going to continue here on my reading declaration here. He says he. Again, Jefferson is referring to the King George, the King of England at the time of the Revolution, 1776. I'm going to change this here to apply today. Socialists have refused his assent to laws that most wholesome and necessary for public good. Socialists aren't making laws for the common good. Socialists don't want to end poverty. Why? Because poor people continue to vote for him. Socialists don't want to end prejudice. You know why? Gets them elected every 2 to 4 years. One of the reasons I would never vote for a Democrat is how they treat black people, how they treat minorities. What really has the Democrat Party done for a minority? They built you the projects. I see everybody wants to run to the projects, how great it is, how wonderful it is. And they want to institute that across the world, across the nation. They want to tell you how great a project is, how great a program is. Is it? Has the Democrat Party really helped black people, helped minorities? Or is it just that minorities help them every 2 to 4 years and win elections? And when the election's over, it's like crickets. It's lip service, people. Socialists can't stand minorities. They just say they do. Look at their history. Socialists use minorities, and I'll get into this more detail later. Socialists use minorities to take over. Then after they've taken over, they don't need to listen to you. Socialists have forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till this is set should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. I'm going to change this around a little bit to apply today. There are socialist governors who don't give a rat's rump about the businesses they're taking away. There's a bunch of socialist governors who are tyrants, and when their people are going up there waving the flag and protesting, oh, they're ignorant. They don't care about people. while they destroy businesses and people's lives. So are socialists for people? Are these Democrats for people? And again, is there any difference between a socialist and Democrat? I contend no. If you're a classic liberal and you think that that socialists haven't taken over the Democrat Party, you're in denial, buddy. It can be argued that since Roosevelt, the Democrat Party's been socialist. Okay, I'll let that pass and say it started with Johnson. It definitely turned completely socialist with the Clintons. It definitely was socialist with Obama. And I got a question for all you black people out there. If Obama was a white person, would you like him? What did Obama really do for black people? I know I'm a white person saying this. The reason I'm saying it, because I care about you. I care about black people. I care about my black friends. Think. That's like me being a white person agreeing with any other white person because that person's white. I know those sorts of discussions bother socialists out there, but we need to have those discussions. And I don't care if it bothers socialists out there. Wah, cry. But back to the governors. Are they really for the people? Are they really listening to the people? Read something called The Great Reset. And you tell me. The Great Reset is the idea that if you can use an epidemic or a plague or something else to get people so afraid that they'll give up their rights, and in the process, they'll shut down all the businesses, as many as possible, and then get everybody onto social programs. You know why? First of all, a socialist doesn't like the fact that you'd have your own property, you'd be making your own living, because they want to run everything. But they want you to embrace the programs. That living on a program is better than you making your own living. Again, look to the projects and see how well that works. Look to California and see how well that works. I'm moving on here. Socialists, it says but I'm going to replace it with socialists, have refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless these people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature. Let's apply it today. Unless you're going to agree with the socialists. A right instabilable, don't know the word, forgettable. I apologize for not knowing the word. To them and formidable to tyrants only. So what he's saying here is they're only making laws to help tyrants. Isn't that happening today? Isn't there two Americas now? A left-wing socialist America and everybody else? And what's crazy is, these tyrants are making law after law after law. They themselves don't listen to it, but they want you to. So socialists have called together legislative bodies that places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Hasn't socialists done this? What do you think these socialist think tanks are? What do you think behind closed doors they're doing, or when they put legislation hidden in these big bills that you can't read? They're fatiguing us. They're fatiguing us with calling you a racist. They're fatiguing us with calling someone who's not a liberal racist or ignorant or a redneck or stupid. Who's the real arrogant person? Or the little law, a law at a time, a little bit at a time, to take away your rights in the name of global warming or something else, feeding the poor. They don't do it all at once. Do it a little at a time. Socialists have disevolved representative house repeatedly for oppressing with manly firmness his invasiveness of the right of the people. Liberal judges who make law instead of interpret law. These socialist judges don't care about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. They don't care about you. Socialists have been using the courts for years to implement a socialist system here. And let's also think about rigged elections. Think about Chicago. Think about Detroit. Think about Milwaukee. Think about Atlanta. Think about Phoenix. Think about Vegas. And don't tell me it's just because of Trump. They did this with, like him or not, they did this to Kennedy. Truth is, the reason Nixon acted like a dummy with Watergate is because Democrats were cheating in Chicago to get Kennedy elected. So don't tell me about the virtue of the Democrat Party. Socialists have refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected. They only want their people involved. They only want their people running stuff. This applies today, whereby the legislative powers are incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within. Socialists are doing this. And us conservatives, we go in and we try to say, hey, look at this and look at this. We try to go a legal route, but we run into a socialist judge. We run into a socialist professor. We run into a socialist media. We run into socialist lawyers. We need lawyers, by the way. And we need Congress and Senate and them people. But maybe we don't need any of the socialists there. Socialists have endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalized foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising a condition of new appropriation of lands. That's kind of different now. If you're going to look at immigration today, socialists are using it. Do you think if all these immigrants crossing the border were voting for Republicans, Democrats wouldn't be running down there, the socialists wouldn't be running down there and building the wall themselves? A truth about immigration. Socialists like it when a whole bunch of immigrants are on social welfare. Makes them feel better or something. To get votes. It's all about votes and all about money. They don't care about these people. Socialists have obstructed the administrative justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judicial powers. Socialists have taken over everywhere. They don't like real judicial powers. They're using the power against the people instead of for the people. Socialists have made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. It's called appointed judges. Socialists have erected a multitude of new offices, sent hither swarms of offices to harass our people and to eat our own substance. FBI, CIA, IRS, EPA, other groups. Socialists have kept us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislator. We all know socialists hate the army. We all know Democrats hate our military. If they could replace them all with blind sheep that follow them, they'd like it. But our military, Our military service people are sworn to protect the Constitution. That's the part they don't like. And that's also why I'll get to something else later. Socialists have combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Pretended legislation. Socialists are only pretending to listen to you. They don't like the Constitution. Socialists don't like the Declaration of Independence. Socialists don't want you to have your own rights. How do I know this? They want to tell you what to drive, what to eat, how much money to make, what you could say, what you can't say. Who are the real tyrants? They always want to point to the right's tyrant. The only thing that the right is against is abortion. And I want to go back to this document. It says life. You figure that out. Socialists quarantining large bodies of armed troops among us. Socialists protecting them by a mock trial for punishments for any murders which they should commit on the habitation of these states. Haven't we seen some fake trials lately? Look at all the dead people that the Clintons have from Arkansas to present. I know there'd be fact checkers. Have you ever noticed that fact checking always supports socialists, always supports the Democrat Party? Do you think that's really a coincidence? Socialists cutting off our trade with other parts of the world. Let's switch this around a little bit to apply today. Socialists using trade to kill American businesses. Socialists using foreign governments to harm us through trade, like China, as an example. Socialists imposing taxes on us without our consent. That applies. Socialists depriving us in many cases of our benefit of trial by jury. It's not quite happening, but we continue to let it happen. They're gonna. Mark my words. They're looking. Some socialists already would love to arrest me, throw me in jail, or have me get run over by a bus. They'd love to arrest Rush Limbaugh. They'd love to arrest you who carry a flag. Remember, there's two Americas. There's the America of Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Then there's the America of a right-wing person, a conservative, a true American. Remember, it's all right for Antifa to go down there and burn buildings because it's a peaceful protest. But God forbid you go out there with your little flag and you're fighting against high taxes. You're supporting a president you like. Well, that allows Antifa to go in there and beat on you. I know our president-elect said there's no Antifa. But I want to remind everybody that the same people who fund the Democrat Party fund ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN. They fund Black Lives Matter. They fund Antifa. They fund the teachers union. They fund the universities. So why would you listen to them? And again, I'm not prejudiced. I love black people. But is Black Lives Matter really doing anything for you? Think about it. This happened in Baltimore. They burned down the city and nothing comes back. How'd that help you? But what it did help is it got a whole bunch of black people out there to vote for Democrats. And again, minorities have been voting for Democrats for 100 years. What have they done for you? What really has Democrats done for you? A Republican's at least honest and said, you fix it yourself. Democrat, well, if you vote for us, we're going to do this for you and that for you. You know what they did for you? They built the projects. How's that working out? How do you like your projects? I see everybody loves to move in there. Socialists abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing there an arbitrary government. and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it once an example of fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into other colonies. Just basically saying destroying American rights in today's language. Using laws, using regulations, using the EPA as an example to expand their power, using liberal judges to expand their power, regardless of our rights. Socialists taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering of fundamentally the forms of our government. Socialist lawyers, socialist judges, socialist professors, for suspending our legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us all our causes whatsoever. Cheating in elections, ignoring us when we petition them, calling us ignorant and rednecks and something else. Socialists have abdicted government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. If you don't believe socialists are waging war against us, you're in denial. They're waging war at us as soon as when you go into public education. Why do you think they don't like charter schools? Why do you think they don't like private schools? Why do you think they don't want homeschooling? Because they don't have control. Socialists talk about loving people. They don't give a rat's ass about people. They want to run everything. Why do I say that? They want to tell you what to do all the time. Socialists have plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Haven't we seen that? In the name of a peaceful protest? Socialism is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the work of death, destruction, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty. I don't know this word, sorry about that. Scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. This is why we have a Second Amendment, people. The reason we have the right to bear arms is to protect ourselves from a big intrusive government. The reason socialists want to get rid of guns is because after they've taken over, people want to shoot them. Talk to a Venezuelan. Talk to a Cuban. Talk to a Hmong person in Vietnam. Talk to people from Eastern Europe. Tell them why they take away guns. Socialists has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become executioners of their friend and brethren, or to follow themselves by their hand. They'd love to do this. They just haven't gotten to that point yet. I'll give you a foreshadowing of it. That one governor out there in Oregon, who, if 10 people show up in a house, you're supposed to call them. When's it next? Someone holds a flag and you type it into your phone and they get arrested? Or someone like me reading the Declaration of Independence. I'm sure that if a bunch of people ever watch this video, which I doubt, but if they do, they'll want to arrest me. They'll want me run over by a bus. They definitely would want to have YouTube quash it. He has exercised domestic insurrection. Okay. He has exercised domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitations of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguishable destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Okay, that was written at that time. And admittedly, they had a prejudice against Native Americans. But let's turn this around today. Socialists have excited domestic insurrections among us and have endeavored to bring the inhabitants of cities and other places by deceiving minorities. whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sections, and conditions. Do you think socialists, who is the modern day socialist? A white or a liberal professor? Do you think a liberal professor wants to fight a war? Do you think Joe Biden wants to fight a war? Do you think Nancy Pelosi types, liberals want to fight a war? No. You know who they want to fight the war for you? For them? Minorities. That's what minorities are good for with a socialist Democrat. That's why they want you to angry. Think about it. Why would it benefit the Democrat Party if we actually got rid of prejudice? Why would Democrats teach minorities to do better? Well, if you do better on your own, do you need them? They keep you poor. I'm a white person telling you this. Now, compare an Indian reservation to the projects. I want to remind you, the projects weren't built by a corporation. They were built by the United States government. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? So don't believe them when they say that they're there for getting rid of racism. They're creating racism. Why? They're saying they don't like it. Because it helps them get elected every 2 to 4 years. Socialists in every stage of these oppressions, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repetitive petitions have been answered only by repetitive injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to rule over the free people. Let's go back to this. In every stage, us as oppressors. Remember, there's 2 Americas. There's the socialist liberal wing country, and there's everybody else. And everybody else keeps on going to Congress and Senate and the judicial system. And we're met by socialist tyrants. A note on this. They say they're not. Would a tyrant admit that they're a tyrant? Would someone evil admit that they're evil? Or would they point at other people? Well, they're evil. They do this and they do this. A lot of times when socialists are saying they do this, you know why they believe they're doing this? It's because they're doing it. And I want to say this. There's a difference between a classic liberal and a socialist. Maybe I've said it already. If you think that the Democrat Party is the same party of Kennedy, you're in denial, buddy. Kennedy wouldn't use the IRS to hurt people. The IRS wouldn't use the press to squash someone else's free speech, would he? The current socialist running the Democrat Party would. Kennedy wouldn't be using global warming to kill your business. Kennedy wouldn't even use high taxes to hurt you. He was for lower taxes. Look it up. Not the fake stuff that socialism say. And I want to say that if you look at history, socialists, no matter what country, are unfit to rule free people. Socialists don't care about Canadians. If a socialist is supposed to be more important than a Canadian. Socialists don't care if you're British. Socialists don't care if you're French. Socialists don't care if you're from South Korea or from Portugal or Spain or Italy. To a socialist, that's more important. Why? Remember, socialism is a cult without a god. Or at the very least, their god is Marx. Their god is Nancy Pelosi. Their god is socialist name of wherever. And they're all tyrants because they believe that if they ran the world would be a utopia. But what do they create? They create a dystopia. And you can take that dystopia and shove it up someone's rear end. Socialists nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. Meaning, us real Americans don't want anything bad to happen to other Americans, even if we disagree. Socialists don't care. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and I don't know what this word is, I apologize. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of continuity. I apologize for mispronouncing stuff. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and peace and friends. No sane person wants war. I want peace. But who's pushing for a civil war? Ask yourself that. Socialists have always created civil wars. Vietnam, Korea, China, and other places. Unless you kiss your ass. This document gives us permission to say no. God's given us the word no for a reason. And applied correctly, the word no is not negative. The word no is very positive. It gives us peace, gives us prosperity. And again, this document gives us the okay to say no. We therefore, the representations of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies or of these United States, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies, or these United States, the people of the United States, are and of right ought to be free and independent states or people. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. Let's turn this today. That every American has the right to tell a socialist no. Every American has the right to tell a socialist governor no. They have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all their acts, things which independent states may have right to. Let's turn it again to today. Every American has the right to own their own business. Every American has the right to choose to wear a mask or not. Every American has the right to choose what type of car they want to drive, within reason. But these socialists want to get rid of cars. They want to tell you what to do. They want to tell you what type of job they have. They want to tell you what to watch on TV. And for the support of this declaration, with a former reliance on the protection of divine providence, God, we mutually pledge to each other our lives and our fortunes and our sacred honor. Maybe it's Americans to be eagles again. What do I mean by that? Think about an eagle and how majestic it is. And it protects its nest. Now, if you're a true American, and you believe the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights, and the freedoms it gives you, it's time to be an eagle. If you tell me that I just want to do my job and have a house and protect my family and watch TV, what do you think they're after? Do you think socialists want you to have a house? They want to say who can own a house or not own a house. They want to tell you what type of car to drive. And they want to tell you what to watch on TV. They don't want you to watch anything on TV or on the internet that disagrees with them. Remember, there's two countries now. There's a country for left-wing socialists, and there's a country for everybody else. And I got news for you, you classic liberals who think you're safe. They don't like you either. Examples. If you are a left-wing professor who believes in freedom of speech, you're not liberal enough. If you are a woman who owns her own business, owns her own business, you're against abortion, you know what? You're not liberal enough. You happen to be a classic liberal who believes that America's worth saving. To a socialist, you're not liberal enough. Let's say you're Catholic or a Jewish person or a Christian, and you consider yourself a classic liberal. You definitely are not liberal enough. They don't want you praying unless to a God they made up. And remember, a true socialist is an atheist. They don't believe in God. They think it's ignorance. God forbid you actually believe in creation. God forbid you actually think that the Ten Commandments is a good idea. That's for anybody. But if you're a classic liberal, they hate you more than everybody else. Have you listened to them? They blame you for the fact that the Democrat Party hasn't been complete, that there's been some Democrats out there who aren't complete socialists. They blame you, the classic liberal. And history has proved they come at you first. Think about that. Who did Nazis come after first? Other socialists. They killed these other socialists first. Don't give me this hogwash that Nazis started out as capitalists. You know who was saying that? Socialists. Imagine that. Nazis started out as a socialist party. And even, let's say they didn't, they certainly did turn into socialists now, didn't they? Back to being an eagle. Are you an eagle? Where are the eagles when the government says you can't open a business or it can't stay open? Where are the eagles where they tell you have to wear a mask? Let's talk about that for just 1 second. Any doctor who comes up and says that the mask doesn't work, they squash it. Maybe it's not about the mask. Even the CDC has said that lockdowns don't work, but they like the lockdowns now, don't they? Is there an agenda? How come doctors have been out there and said, hey, we know how to treat this virus? They're squashed. Makes you wonder now. It should make you wonder. Is it about the virus? Just like does socialists really want to feed the poor, help the poor? Do socialists really care about minorities? It's time to be eagles. Are you an eagle? Do you believe in the Declaration of Independence? Do you believe in the Constitution of the United States? Do you believe in the Bill of Rights? I've gone a little longer than I thought or I wanted. But I want to leave you with this. God has given us the word no. God blessed this nation by writing these documents. God allowed Jefferson to write this document. God allowed our government, our founding forefathers, to write the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Then God was with us in the Revolutionary War. God was with us in the War of 1812, which was a second Revolutionary War. God was even with us in the Civil War. We had two sides who disagreed, and they fought each other. That's American. There's nothing more anti-American than to tell people what they should believe and who they should be. The right isn't doing that. Then God allowed this nation to fight in World War I. Without us, Germans would have won that war. Without us, we probably wouldn't have won World War II. Don't believe this hogwash that the Russians won it. Their army sucked. They sent one person out with a gun, another one with bullets. And if they turned around, they shot him. How good an army is that? Without our money, without our capitalism, Russia would have fell. Winston Churchill and Patton wanted to continue with World War II and take out the Russians. But the Democrats at the time didn't want to do that. Take that for what it's worth. There have been patriots all along. Eagles, I'd call them, who defended the principles in the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and in the Constitution. And of many races, by the way. I've gone way longer than I wanted to. But if we don't put a stop to this, when are they going to come after you? And for what? That's what socialists do. May God bless this nation. Remember, God gave us the word no for a reason. God gave us these documents for a reason. And God's blessed this nation for a reason. Anyway, I don't know how long this is going to last on the internet. I don't know if anybody's going to watch it. But I'm glad that you've listened. Are you an eagle? You have a good, I hope America survives.